Hello and welcome to Education and Democracy. Do please click on the like below and the share below. The things that we will talk about on this channel are important to our concepts of education and democracy. And my name is Kevin Lister, and I was a maths lecturer at New College, Swindon. And I was dismissed for not referring to a female as a male, for not following the college's gender reassignment policy, and I was subsequently placed on the children's barred list by the government's Disclosure and Barring Service. I have a number of cases coming up, and in these videos I will update on those cases and reflect on the wider implications of my case on education and on democracy and on the justice system. The two cases I've got coming up is that, an appeal through the Employment Appeals Tribunal against the decision by the Employment Tribunal in March 2024 to dismiss my claim for discrimination and unfair dismissal. And I have a second case coming up, which is through the Upper Tribunal against the DBS decision to put me on the children's barred list. So the thing I'm going to be talking about today is the latest updates in my case against the DBS that's running through the Upper Tribunal. This case is important because it feeds directly into the Employment Appeal Tribunal case. One of the grounds of appeal that we have is that my appeal through the Employment Tribunal was prejudiced by the government's decision to put me on the children's barred list. So the two cases link together. For those who are not aware of the Disclosure and Barring Service and the children's barred list, let me first cover that. The Children's Barred List and the Disclosure and Barring Service were set up in the wake of Ian Huntley's murder of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. It was a process set up to ensure that the most odious people in society are prevented from gaining access to children. And when it was set up in an atmosphere of horror in the country about the heinous crimes that Ian Huntley had committed. And I believe that when legislation is made in that kind of environment, often it's poor legislation, even though its intent is good. And clearly the murder of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman demonstrated that something needed to be done. But a knee-jerk reaction is often worse than, in the long run, than the problems it's trying to curtail. The problem with the children's barred list process is that anybody can be placed on the children's barred list, and you can be placed on the barred list on the basis of opinion. So under the Safeguarding and Vulnerable Persons Act 2006, a person can be placed on the barred list without any breach of law and without any factual findings against that person. So it's sufficient for a regulated body such as a school or a hospital or social services, or even another person, to refer a person to the Disclosure and Barring Service to say this, that and the other that the person has done, and that person can then be placed on the children's barred list. And once on the children's barred list, the person then has no access to children. So for me as a teacher, it clearly means I can't teach. It means I cannot help my partner run the local athletics club. It means I cannot drive a van for Tesco's. And it means I cannot even mark exam scripts for EdXL. So it is a draconian punishment. You cannot get off the DBS by appealing to you cannot get off the children's barred list by appealing to the DBS for 25 years. The only way to get off it is by appealing your case through the Upper Tribunal, and that is subject to the Upper Tribunal concluding that you have a case, and that's a process that takes many years, as I'm finding out. The irony is that you can be placed on the barred list on the basis of opinion or supposition, but you can only get off the barred list if you can demonstrate errors of fact and errors of law. And that's what we're having to demonstrate to the Upper Tribunal in my case. So, in terms of the Upper Tribunal case and the overall structure of the case at the moment, I was placed on the children's barred list on the 19th December 2023. That was the day when the guidance, when the long-awaited government guidance for schools on gender questioning children was finally released. And that guidance vindicated everything that I had done, which was to put safeguarding as a number one priority, to make sure that we're interfacing properly with parents and that we don't encourage children to think that they are of the opposite sex. So the draft guidance vindicated what I did, but yet the DBS chose to put me on the barred list on the day that that guidance was released. On the 9th of January 2024, I then issued my appeal to the Upper Tribunal against the DBS decision. We didn't hear anything from either the DBS or the Upper Tribunal until April 2024, which was after my employment tribunal, and the response that we had from the DBS at that point was that the DBS said that they may have erred in their decision to put me on the barred list because the things that I had allegedly said to student A was my student who wanted to present as a male, a female student who wanted to present as a male. So the DBS said the things that I said to student A had in fact been said to student B, and student B was student A's friend who told me to refer to student A as a male. So the DBS recognised that they had made a mistake and said to the Upper Tribunal that they wanted to review their mistake. We demanded that I get taken off the barred list immediately whilst the DBS do the review, but the Upper Tribunal said no, that the DBS could carry on with the review and complete their review in June, end of June. When we got to the end of June, the DBS asked for an extension. They were given a second extension. They got to the end of the second extension and asked for a third one, and the process went along like that until eventually on the 9th of December 2024, the DBS concluded that I should stay on the barred list, and the reason that they were basically giving that I should stay on the barred list was because of the things that I had posted on Twitter and Facebook, where I had been raising my concerns, like many other people, about the ideology of encouraging children to think they were of the opposite sex, and for raising concerns about the teaching of LGBTQ ideologies in schools. So that was basically finally the reason that the DBS kept me on the barred list. So we have now been given the right to appeal that decision through the Upper Tribunal, so we're very grateful to that. And our appeal went in on the 7th of February. And the DBS have now given a direction which came out on the 14th of May for the initial oral hearing, and they've now also given a date for the initial oral hearing, which is on the 12th of August 2025. So that will now be about 21 months after we first put the appeal in to the Upper Tribunal against the DBS's decision. So there's a couple of important things that are happening here. As I say, we've submitted our appeal. I'll talk through the appeal in a minute. We have the initial oral hearing where we will agree the claims to be pushed and to be debated in the final appeal hearing. And and the DBS gave an invite to the Upper Tribunal rather, gave an invite to the DBS for the DBS to attend the initial oral hearing. The DBS have not taken up that invite to attend the oral hearing, so that helps me enormously when the DBS will not be able to object to the things that we place in our list of claims. So let me talk about the claims that we are putting. I'll talk about the claims. I would like to put them online. Unfortunately, the DBS requested anonymity or non-disclosure of the document bundle, and the claim will be in the document bundle, so I'm not really able to post that online at the moment. But I will talk through the claims and what the basis of the claims are. Now, as I said earlier on, to get off the barred list and to be successful with the claim, I need to demonstrate that there are errors in fact and errors in law in the DBS decision to put me on the barred list. Now, we've listed 8 errors of fact in our claim. I'll talk through those, and areas where there are errors in law separately. So in terms of the errors of fact, the first error of fact is that the DBS claim that I had made student A upset by not referring to her as a male. Now, that is just entirely speculation, because at no time was student A spoken to by a child-centered adult with the intent of that child-centered adult ascertaining student A's wishes and feelings. So there was only one conversation that the college had with student A. And in that one conversation, student B was present. And student B spoke on behalf of student A through the entire interview. So at no time had student A's wishes and feelings been ascertained. And that was established early on by the safeguarding officer in Swindon Borough Council, and I'd raised that concern with the DBS and with New College Swindon, and that was ignored continuously. So the idea that and the claim by the college to the DBS that I'd caused upset and caused emotional harm to student A was entirely speculation. The second ground of appeal is that I had said to, or the DBS claim that I had said to student A that she would be a burden on her parents and on the NHS should she transition. Now, that's entirely false. I had one very quick conversation with student A when she was upset at the end of a class, and she was talking about her transition as the reason for her being upset. And I said to her that she needed to consider how her parents would feel, and I warned her that she could not rely on the NHS over the course of her lifetime providing her the extra medical care that she would need. So that is not saying that she was going to be a burden to her parents or to the NHS. Even if I had said that, it would be true. I have had numerous parents contacting me since I went public, and those parents whose children have transitioned have been subjected to the most extraordinary emotional burden. So it would be a true thing for me to have warned her that she would become a burden on her parents if that's what I had said. And likewise, the burden on the NHS from mental health related issues is now extraordinary. So even if I had said the things I'm alleged to have said, it would not be a safeguarding issue. It would have been a point of fact. The third ground of appeal is that the DBS claim that I had said that, or the DBS claim I said that student B had exaggerated her claims. Well, I had never said that. In fact, in the one conversation I had with student B, when student B instructed me to refer to student A as a male, I explained to student B why I thought that was a bad idea, and I gave her various pointers. I said that I didn't believe it was sound, it was a cult. I said it would probably end up in a mess of legal cases in the future. And student B listed all the points that I stated and used those in her complaint. And I have got no complaint about what student B said. She listed everything I said accurately. What I had said to in my response to the DBS is not that student B exaggerated, but that she embellished her complaint that she made of me to the college. So student B in particular had said that she and student A did not feel safe in my class. Well, that is just the usual complaint from transgender activists, which they always like to level at gender critical people, that somehow they are not safe, as if I, as a teacher, am going to leap over the desks and beat one of them to a pulp. I mean, it's just an absurd proposition. But that idea that all gender critical people are all a threat to all transgender people is a nonsense that's peddled by the transgender community, and it was a nonsense that was accepted by New College Swindon and subsequently accepted by the Disclosure and Barring Service. The fourth ground is that the DBS claim that I did not treat student A and student B with respect when I said to student B my reasons for not referring to student A as a male, even though student A was not there at the time. So the DBS say that I did not treat student A or student B with respect. Again, this is absurd. I am the teacher. My student comes to speak to me at the end of a class in private to instruct me as a teacher how I must behave to the other students in the class. So not only must I refer to student A as a male, but I must then make every other student in the class do the same. That is a completely and utterly inappropriate instruction for me to get from another student. So because I had explained to her why I was not going to do that, according to the DBS, I was not showing respect to either student A or student B. And that now is a reason for me to be on the barred list. Absurd. The fifth ground of appeal is that the DBS claim that student A wishing to be referred to as a male was not anything related, or was not in any way related, to student A taking cross-sex hormone treatment or self-medicating with cross-sex hormone treatment in any way. Now again, that is absurd. The only reason why a person would consider the only reason why a person would consider presenting in the opposite sex is to move down a medical pathway, taking cross-sex hormones. Now, I don't know how far down the medical pathway she was at that time. The college have subsequently confirmed that she did transition, whatever that means. So it was clearly a risk. It was clearly a risk. And for the DBS to claim that it was nothing to do with taking cross-sex hormones is a nonsense. And again, this is the nonsense that was peddled by New College Swindon at the Employment Tribunal, and which the Employment Tribunal accepted. The sixth ground of appeal is that in the letter, the final barring letter that I received from the DBS, that the DBS claimed that I had put safeguarding as number one, and that was a ground for putting me on the barred list. That the letter specifically said that I stated that safeguarding was my number one priority, that I had put it above the security of my job, and because I had done that, I had not empathised properly with student A. Now this takes some believing, but that is exactly what the DBS had put in the final barring letter, that I put safeguarding above empathising with a student's belief that she was in the wrong body or of the wrong sex. I mean, this is absurd. The DBS was a body set up by the government in extreme circumstances after the Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman murders to ensure safeguarding, and they now put somebody on the barred list for putting safeguarding as a number one concern. It is impossible to try and get your head around the absurdity of that. I can't, and if anybody watching this can, then do please put your comments down below. The 7th ground of appeal is that I did not escalate my concerns to management. Well, I did. As soon as student A said that she was wanting to present in the opposite sex, I immediately raised a safeguarding concern, and that is the formal escalation process. Once it got into that process, the process itself failed, but that's not my fault. That's the fault of the college. I subsequently raised my concerns with my manager, Amanda Spanswick. I subsequently raised my concerns at training sessions, and I subsequently raised a second safeguarding concern about teachers encouraging students to present as the opposite sex. Everything I raised subsequently to my first safeguarding concern were ignored by the college, or actually used as evidence against me to refer me to the local area designated office in Swindon Borough Council on safeguarding grounds myself. And the 8th ground of appeal is that I did not follow the college's procedures. Now again, this is something that New College Swindon had said to the DBS, that I should have followed the procedures, which buried in the back of the procedure in an appendix was an instruction that we had to use the preferred pronoun of a student. Now, there is no reason for the college to have a gender reassignment policy. In fact, anybody listening to this should be asking the question, why does a college or a school have a gender reassignment policy? I mean, it is just bizarre to even think that a school or a college should have such a document. But nonetheless, the college did. Now, there is no legal reason for the college to have such a policy. The policy, I contend, was discriminatory, and that's going to be the subject of the Employment Appeals Tribunal. And the policy was unlawful, so there was no necessity for me to follow that policy. In the same way as if the college had a policy that said we were to kick all, all people over 6 foot. Teachers wouldn't follow an absurd policy. And the gender reassignment policy is equally absurd. The policy ultimately was to force teachers to encourage young children or young people that they could be of the opposite sex. I mean, again, just absurd. So they're the 8 grounds that we are appealing. The 8 errors of fact that are in our appeal. In terms of the errors in law that form the basis of our appeal, the main error in law is that the decision to put me on the barred list is completely disproportionate. So being placed on the barred list is effectively putting me under house arrest. As I said earlier on, I can't work, I can't do many other activities, and it's completely draconian, and it's almost impossible to get off the barred list once you are on it. So the issue of proportionality is one of the first grounds of law that we are pursuing. The second ground of law just bear with me. The second area of law, is that I have the right to gender critical views. And effectively what the DBS have done by running through my Twitter feed and pulling up anything where I've raised my concerns about transitioning is the government effectively saying that I do not have the right to those views. So again, this is a Human Rights Act issue, and that's the second fundamental error in law that we see with the DBS. So the Upper Tribunal have now directed that the DBS must respond to my claims by the 14th of June. So that's the next critical point in the process. Other things that we have had in the direction is in the document bundle that the DBS prepared, there was a substantial 5-page document that somebody had submitted to the DBS. I don't know who the person was. I don't know what's in that. But that document had been completely redacted in the document bundle. So the DBS had been instructed by the Upper Tribunal to disclose that document fully to me. They say I don't know what is in that, but it's quite likely that there might well be something in that that is pertinent to my appeal. So that's kind of where we are. The oral hearing on the 12th, and we await the response from the DBS to the claims that I have made. Now, this is a hugely important case for a number of reasons. The first is it challenges the idea that it is a safeguarding concern not to support the transitioning of a child. By contrast, if it's concluded that it is not a safeguarding concern to not support the transitioning of a child, so if the court comes in my favour, the corollary of that is that it must be a safeguarding concern to encourage a child to transition. Now, one of the things that I have done, and probably one of the reasons why the DBS have been so reticent about taking me off the barred list, is I have referred all the managers of New College Swindon to the Disclosure and Barring Service, and I've asked the Disclosure and Barring Service to review all the documents with a view to consider placing the managers on the barred list themselves. So, should I win my appeal, it then places a significant onus on the Disclosure and Barring Service to start that review process going, to basically put the managers who have made untrue claims about me to the Barring Service on the barred list, and also to put the other managers who have supported those untrue claims also to be placed on the barred list as well. The other reason why this is so important is if I am successful here, then it means that any other teacher in the country who encourages children to believe that they are of the opposite sex could also be referred to the Disclosure and Barring Service, and that other teachers could refer their colleagues to the Disclosure and Barring Service. So other teachers, other gender critical teachers who see trans activist teachers in their schools could now act appropriately. And so far, I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, any teachers have done that yet. And hence why the transgender ideology has gained such traction in schools for so long. So this will be a fundamental case about bringing safeguarding back into the forefront of education and not having it pushed into some far off corner and becoming just basically a tick box exercise that can be abused by ideologues of any type at any stage in the process. So that's kind of where this case is at the moment. That's why this case is so important. It's important to stop the transgender ideology in its tracks, and also to start allowing some compensation for those people who have been damaged so badly by this movement. So the other thing I would say as well, in the sort of closing remarks here, is that so far the DBS have been pursuing this case against me with their lawyers using taxpayer funds. So the DBS can effectively put their hands in the taxpayer's pocket indefinitely and take as much money as they want to continue their case. Now, I cannot think anywhere where the government has used taxpayers' funds to so blatantly pursue an ideological cause, and in particular an ideological cause that has caused so much damage and so much harm. So effectively I am fighting the government, and I'm fighting the government's ability to put their hands in everybody's pockets to fight these crazy causes, and I do not know why they are so embedded with this cause. So everyone who has contributed to my GoFundMe, I cannot thank you enough. This is very much a David versus Goliath battle. I rely entirely on the funds from the GoFundMe to fund my case. And again, I would like to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for the contributions that have been made so far. So if you can, then do please contribute. Again, I'll put the link down below to my GoFundMe. Don't contribute if you can't. Appreciate that many people are hard up at the moment, and I don't want to push anybody over the limit that is already there. If you can't contribute, but you would like to support this, then do please share this video either on Twitter or whatever other social media that you're using, or through YouTube. But do please help me get the message out. This is vitally important. So with no further ado, then now to talk about some happy things. Because I've got a captive audience, I'll start talking about some maths. So do hang around for a little bit. I want to talk about some maths whereby we take lots of GCSE stuff, relatively simple material, and we're going to link together the equations of circles, Pythagoras, Pythagorean triples, quadratic equations, prime numbers, and hopefully show a nice narrative through a large part of the GCSE maths. So do stay with me, and with no further ado, I'll switch over into maths teaching mode. So thank you very much. And welcome back to the maths part of this video. And today we're going to look at equations of circles, Pythagoras, prime numbers, and Pythagorean triples. And this is all material that is from the GCSE course. So last week someone said the work was too difficult. So this is hopefully really simple stuff. But it's quite profound, simple stuff that when it comes together, it starts making you ask some various fundamental questions. So let's start with the equation of a circle. So I've got a circle here drawn with the centre on the origin. Obviously all the points on the circumference of the circle are the same distance from the origin, and I can tie any point on the circumference of the circle together with Pythagoras. So basically Pythagoras tells me that x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. So I've effectively got a right angle triangle here. The x is the distance on the base and the y is the height, and these tie together, as I say, with Pythagoras. So any point on the circumference of this circle is tied with this simple equation. Okay, now I can rearrange this equation ever so slightly by dividing through by r squared. So I can rewrite this same equation as x squared divided by r squared plus y squared divided by r squared is equal to 1. And I'll just tidy that up a bit just to write it in this form. X over r squared plus y over r squared is equal to 1. So the equation now is still very much in the same form as the green equation above, but what we've effectively got now is the equation of a circle with a radius of 1. So the r squared is 1, so the r is equal to 1. So we've now got the equation of a circle with a radius 1, or so it's the equation of a unit circle. Equation of the unit circle. Okay, now I'm going to go for a leap of faith here. So let me just put down here a leap of faith, and I'll then demonstrate why my leap of faith has worked. Leap of faith, and in the leap of faith, I'm going to put x equals 2t. I'm going to put y equals t squared minus 1, and I'm going to put r equals t squared plus 1. Okay, now when I substitute those into the equation of the circle, in the equation of the unit circle, I'm now going to get 2t over t squared plus 1 all squared plus t squared minus 1 over t squared plus 1, and that's all squared, and this is equal to 1. Now what I want to do now is just show that the left side does in fact equal 1, and if the left side does equal to 1, then my leap of faith has been a good leap of faith and it's been correct and successful. So just to simplify out the left side, I'm going to square everything inside this first bracket, so I get 4t squared divided by t squared plus 1 all squared plus t squared minus 1 all squared divided by t squared plus 1 all squared, and that's equal to 1. So you've just got to expand out this the numerator t squared minus 1 all squared, so I get now 4t squared divided by t squared plus 1 all squared, and when I expand the numerator out I get t squared minus 2 lots of t squared plus 1 divided by t squared plus 1 all squared is equal to 1. Okay, if you can't remember your expansions as squared terms, the easiest way always I find to think about it is to consider it as a multiplication grid. I've got t squared minus 1, t squared minus 1. As I expand out here, I'm going to get t to the 4 minus t squared, and minus is a plus. 1 times 1 is 1. As I bring all the like terms together, I get t to the 4 minus 2 lots of t squared plus 1. And that's basically what's going in down there. Okay, so I've got fractions on the left side. I've got the same common denominators. I can bring everything together, and I've got a slight typo there. That should be a t to the 4. So as I bring the numerators together, I get t to the 4. I've got 4t squared minus 2t squared, so I've got 2 lots of t squared plus 1 divided by t squared plus 1 all squared, which is equal to 1. Okay, on the numerator I can rewrite it as t squared plus 1 all squared divided by t squared plus 1 all squared, and that's equal to 1. So effectively what I've got now is 1 is equal to 1. So my leap of faith over here must have been correct, so I'll just write that down. So the leap of faith that I had at the beginning was successful. Okay. okay, because that's left us with a 1 equals 1. And so effectively I can now rewrite my equation of a circle that I started off with initially as the x as being 2t, the r value is t squared plus 1, all of that was squared, then the y value was t squared minus 1, the r value was t squared plus 1, this is all squared, and this is equal to 1. So the leap of faith was successful, so we've now got this equation now for our unit circle. And we know that this equation must work for all values of t. Okay, so let's just cast your eye back over what we've done there. Okay, well that's pretty cool, because now if I imagine my t values increasing, so I can imagine a table here with my t values. If I say start at 2, my x value is 2t, my y value is t squared minus 1, and my r value, or my hypotenuse, is t squared plus 1. So when the 2 goes in now, I get 2 times 2 for the x value, which is going to be 4. When the 2 goes into this equation for y, 2 squared is 4, minus 1 is 3. When the 2 goes into the equation for r, I get 2 squared is 4 plus 1 is 5. T goes up to 3. Substitute the values in, I get 6. 3 squared is 9, minus 1 is 8. And 3 squared plus 1 is 10. Now the first thing you're going to spot here is, in terms of triangles, when t equals 2, I've got a 3, 4, 5 triangle, say 3, 4, 5. When t equals 3, I've got basically another triangle where I've got 6, 8 and 10. So the ratio of all these sides is the same. So when t equals 3, it's just an enlargement of the t equals 2 triangle. Effectively I could divide everything here when t equals 3 by 2 to come down to 3, 4, 5. So I get basically the same triangle, a congruent triangle to the triangle I got when t was equal to 2. Okay, so we've got my first Pythagorean triple, and when t equals 3, I've just got an enlarged repeat of it. Okay, let's imagine t equals 4. Let's see what we get. We get 8. 4 squared is 16, minus 1 is 15, and 4 squared is 16 plus 1 is 17. So I've got my next Pythagorean triple here. 17 is a prime number, so we can't simplify this triangle down any further. If I go to t equals 5, I get 10. 5 squared is 25, minus 1 is 24, and 5 squared plus 1 is 25 plus 1, which is 26. Again, this can be simplified down, so I'll just divide everything here by 2. So I get 5, 12 and 13. Go up a little bit more, t equals 6, I get 12. T squared minus 1 is 36, minus 1 is 35, and this one is going to be 6 squared, which is 36 plus 1, which is 37. Okay, and this process can continue on. Now, what's kind of interesting here is the number of primes I've got. So if I circle the primes, I've got a prime here, I've got 3 and 5, I've got 17, I've got 37, I've got 13, I've got a 5 down here, and so forth. Now, what I've done is I've got a spreadsheet together, and so you can find my spreadsheet. And here's my spreadsheet. So I've already put this together on a spreadsheet. So looking at all the values of t up to 21, and getting my values of x, y, and r from the equations. So then the yellow values I've highlighted are all primes. Obviously 34 is not a prime, so I'm not quite sure why that one's been highlighted. Okay, so as I go down here, if I look at the patterns that emerge, so 3 is a prime number and it's an odd number, and the numbers on the right hand side of the table are all even. So these numbers, as I said before, simplify down to 3, 4 and 5. If I go to 5, the next prime, the numbers on the right hand side are all even, and this side over here simplifies down to 5, 12 and 13. 6 is even. 7 is a prime. The numbers on the in the table for 7 are all even, so we can divide by 2. We get 7, we get 24, we get 25, and so forth. 8, 9. 9 is odd. We can divide the numbers by 2, so we get 9, 40, and 41. 41 is a prime. 10 is even. 101 is a prime. 11 is a prime. All the numbers are even on the left hand side, so we now get 11. We get 60, and we get 61, and so forth. Okay, now what's kind of interesting is where the primes all occur. So I've got a 3 and a 5 on this first one. I've got a 17. I've got a 5 down here. Well, that maps with this 5 over here. I've got a 7 here, which obviously maps with this 7. I've got an 11 down here, which maps with this 11. But this 5 is generating this prime over here. This 11 is generating this prime over here, 61. The 3 that we had here basically generated, if we go back to this very first one here, the 3, 4, 5. So this has generated this 5 along here. We've also got the 41 and so forth. So the question is how many primes get generated on the right hand side of the table? So obviously if I start with a prime here 3, I get a prime on the other side. Start with the prime 5, I get a prime on the other side. Start with the 7, I get a prime on the 7. Start with a 9, I get a prime over here, 41. Start with 11, I get a prime of 61, and so forth. So the question is, how many primes occur on the right hand side of this table? Okay, now I don't know if we can conclude from this perhaps that every prime number ends up in a Pythagorean triple, or it gets generated into a Pythagorean triple. But certainly we see an awful lot of primes coming up on the right hand side. So worthwhile just to explore this and see what the links turn out to be between primes and Pythagorean triples. Okay, now the next interesting thing we can do is we can look at adding our Pythagorean triples. So if I come back up to the work that we did at the top, so I used my leap of faith to say x was 2t, y was equal to t squared minus 1, r was t squared plus 1. I substituted it all into the left side to demonstrate ultimately that 1 was equal to 1. Now there's no real reason on the face of it that I needed to consider this unit circle. Okay, so but in fact what I did consider the unit circle. As I say, there's no real reason to have considered it, because I could have substituted these expressions for x, y and r into the original green equation at the top. Okay, but where the unit circle comes in is if I want to combine Pythagorean triples. So if I take the Pythagorean triple that the first one that we got, which is 3, 4, 5, and so I divide through by 5, so I get my x length as 3 divided by 5. I get my y length as 4 divided by 5, and I get this first Pythagorean triple. Now my next Pythagorean triple was the 8, 15 and 17. So what I can do is I can construct the next Pythagorean triple, 8, 15 and 17, off this first Pythagorean triple. So I divide through by the 17, I divide through by the 5, and I get these two triangles. Here's the first triangle, and here's the second triangle, which I draw off the first triangle. So I come up 8/17, turn through a right angle, and I go 5/17, and this distance is 1, because at all times we've got a unit circle. So as I say, the 8, 5, 17, that yields 8 over 17 plus 15 over 17. Square both of those values, and I know it's 1. Likewise, with the 3, 4, 5, this yields 3 divided by 5, 4 divided by 5, square both sides, or both terms, and I get 1. So both sets of Pythagorean triples give me a length of 1. So say I can construct this shape here. So I've got theta 1 and theta 2. So what basically I can do here is I can take the first Pythagorean triple, which leads me to x1 and y1, and I add on the next Pythagorean triple to get these new values of xn and yn. So xn is x new, yn is y new. So how do we add the two Pythagorean triples to get a third Pythagorean triple? Well, it's now just simple trigonometry. So I can say that if I take this first triangle, I can say that the tan of theta 1 is the opposite divided by the adjacent, which is 4 divided by 5 divided by 3 divided by 5, multiply top and bottom by 5, so I get 4 divided by 3. So theta 1 is tan to the minus 1 of 4 divided by 3, and tan to the minus 1 of 4 divided by 3 is 53.13. Now if you do this on the calculator, save this into the memory so you don't have any rounding errors. So this is 53.13 with a whole pile of decimal places. Let's say that goes into your memory on your calculator. Now for theta 2, I can do the same. Tan theta 2 is equal to the opposite divided by the adjacent, and that's obviously going to simplify down to 15 divided by 8, and which means that theta 2 is tan to the minus 1 of 15 divided by 8, and that gives me an angle of 61.92, and so on and so forth. And again, save that one in the memory on your calculator so you don't get any rounding errors. Okay, so what I'm trying to find is xn, x new, and yn, y new. And so I now have the angle, which is basically theta 1 and theta 2. So I can call this angle down here, say theta 3. So what I can now say is that theta 3 is theta 1 plus theta 2. So basically just going to add these two numbers together. Gives me 115.05 and all the points there and all that sort of stuff in the memory on your calculator. So it's now dead easy to find xn and yn. So xn, just by simple trigonometry, is going to be the cosine of 115.05, this value that I've now saved in the memory of my calculator. And if you stick that in your calculator will come out with 36 over 85, and I can find the yn value by sine of 115.05 and all points down here, and that's now simply going to be 77 divided by 85. So what we've now got is 36 divided by 85 squared plus 77 divided by 85 squared. In fact, this 36 should be negative, but it doesn't matter here because we square it, and all that's now equal to 1. So what we've done now is we've combined two Pythagorean triples to get a new Pythagorean triple. So my new Pythagorean triple is 36, 77 and 85. Okay, so I'll let you just cast your eye across that. So we built this first triangle, we've got the second triangle coming off. We can get theta 1, theta 2 just by our basic trigonometry. Add the two thetas together, we get the new angle theta 3. We know that the x value is going to be the cosine of theta 3 and the y value is going to be the sine of theta 3. Stick those values in your calculator and the fractions come out, so we get our third Pythagorean triple by combining two other Pythagorean triples. Now, clearly we can add any of our Pythagorean triples together in the same way to do the same thing, or we can add any number of Pythagorean triples together. So not only can we get an infinite number of Pythagorean triples from our table, but we can get even more. We can add any combination of Pythagorean triples to get a whole new suite of Pythagorean triples. If you're doing A-level maths, if you're listening to this and doing A-level maths, then what you want to think about is how you would do this, how you'd find your new Pythagorean triples without a calculator, basically using your compound angle formulas for cosine of theta 1 plus theta 2 and sine theta 1 plus theta 2. Okay, so I hope that was useful and interesting, and gives you a bit of an insight on how we can apply the basic GCSE material that we've got in a slightly more interesting fashion than we typically get shown in the textbooks. So just to finish off, I'll let you cast your eye over the whole thing. Okay, so I'll wrap it up there, and any comments or any questions that you've got, then add them in the comments below. And if you would like me to look at anything in particular next week, then do put that in the comments also. Thank you for staying with me.